It's so hard to wake up on Mondays. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. Today's gonna be a good day because I wanted to give you guys my 5 reasons why you should be trying out film photography out in 2020. Now, I want you guys to remember that I am in no way, shape, or form a professional at film photography, nor am I, experienced. I actually just started out film photography like maybe 6 months ago, 7 months ago, so I'm still very, very new to it. But regardless, throughout that time frame, I started falling more and more in love with film photography. First, before we start on the 5 reasons, I kind of want to apologize for all the sounds that you hear. This room is not soundproof at all, and I'm actually right next to the main road. I don't know if you can hear it. I think it's a dumpster truck or something, but let's just wait till it passes by. Okay, now that the big truck is gone, it's a lot more quiet, and we could get started with reason number 1. Affordability. When I'm talking about affordability, I'm talking about when you're first starting off in film photography, because I know that once you get into a hobby, you tend to spend more and more and more into the hobby, and the prices or the amount of money that you spend into a hobby just starts jacking up like crazy. But when you're first starting out, it's super affordable because there are a vast amount of camera bodies and lenses that you can choose from for a cheap price. You could go to your local thrift shop or camera shop, or even all over the internet, people are selling these kind of film cameras. And typically, when it comes to film photography, what matters most is the film you're using and the type of glass that you're using. So with that being said, when you're searching for your first camera body, you don't need to look for the more higher end camera bodies because, like I said, the lens and film stock you're using matters most. For an example, my very first film camera was the Minolta X700, and that is one of the most iconic film cameras that you could actually use today, and it's very, recognized by the film community, which is pretty cool. I was able to search that up and buy it for about 75 bucks with a lens online, and people are selling things like that every single day. So if you search on eBay or if you download like Mercari or OfferUp, you can search for 35mm film camera, and you'll find all these types of deals that won't break your wallet. So yeah, affordability will always be number 1. Okay, so reason number 2. Something so old can feel so new, right? And I can't emphasize that enough. I have a buddy. He was the one who got me started on film photography, which was pretty cool. And when I was having a conversation with him, I found out that we both, were into photography. And when he said that he was into film photography, the first thing that popped up in my mind was like, okay, I thought he was talking about like those disposable film cameras that you buy at your local Walgreens or Walmart, and that didn't flatter me at all until one day me and him went shooting together for the first time, and I saw him pull out his Nikon F3? It was his Nikon F3, and I was like, whoa, that thing looks extremely cool. And when he had me hold it and take a couple shots with it, my mind was completely blown. Even though for something so old, something that I've never experienced before in my life, it felt really new and it felt really refreshing, especially since I've always been a digital shooter. I'm always used to like the electronics and stuff, and switching from that to a more analog perspective it's super refreshing. Like I said, after he showed me that camera, I decided to buy my own, which was the Minolta X700, because he inspired me to want to start shooting film. And just because we're in the digital age doesn't mean that using equipment that was from the past is going to be boring. Film photography actually opened up my mind and allowed me to do more research and appreciate more of the foundations of photography, because I was so caught up with digital this and digital that's all my mind was limited to. And I honestly didn't know that any of these kind of cameras existed. Like, I even bought my own Nikon F3. That's how impressed I was when I saw his, after I bought, you know, like the Milta X700, of course. But yeah, so the refreshing aspect of trying something that belonged to the past is extremely awesome. I highly recommend you guys trying it just for that sole reason alone. Okay, let's get started with reason number 3. So reason number 3, it teaches you patience, and the reason why I say that is because when you're shooting with a film camera, you don't have that digital screen that modern day cameras allow you to review your photos and videos that you capture. Depending on what film stock you're using, you're limited to either 36, 24, or 12 exposures, which forces you as a photographer to slow down and pace yourself when it comes to your compositions, which is a good thing because it teaches you patience, like I said, and it gives your photos and the way you view things a lot more purpose. I don't know about you guys, but whenever I'm using like my digital camera, I'm always I have a trigger finger, so I'm just shooting away until like my memory card gets full, and without a care in the world, because I could just review them and just delete. Whereas film, you don't know what you're gonna get, so you want to make sure that all your shots count. So now, whenever I go out shooting with my digital camera, I take a lot more time, especially with what film photography has taught me in terms of being patient. I'm looking to capture more of a, something more intentful, something that has more of a story. So now that we've finished discussing about reason number 3, let's move on to reason number 4. Reason number 4, there are so many types of flavors that you could use in film photography, and by flavors I mean the different types of film that you can use. And it's so cool because film rolls are basically Lightroom presets packaged in individual boxes. That's what I'd like to think. So you have your color negatives, you have your black and white, you have your slide films, each of them with their own different characteristics. When you're choosing your film, you could use film stocks that are specifically used for portraits, like the Kodak Portrait series. Those are a little bit more expensive, but you'll absolutely love them to death. Or you can use different types of other color negatives like Cinestill 800, which is tungsten balance, and it's beautiful for when you're shooting in low light areas, when you're taking pictures of the city at night. The way it renders colors is absolutely gorgeous. And on top of that, you could use expired film, and that'll give you different types of artistic effects, and it's very aesthetically pleasing, which is pretty dope because everything in the film world is just absolutely usable. It makes film photography a lot more experimental, which is what you want to do in photography. You know, photography is an art form, and in any type of art, you always want to be experimental with different aspects of it because you want to make sure that you're expanding on your creativity, which is always a good thing when it comes to whatever you want to do, especially in photography, which is pretty cool. And yeah, so I have multiple different types of flavors inside here. So yeah, reason number 4, different types of flavors. Choose your poison wisely. Now, let's move on to reason number 5 of why I think you should try film photography in 2020. So to me, film photography is a lot more forgiving than digital, and I know it might be controversial to some of you, especially with the fact that in the digital world, you have a lot more control as to where you want to delete or keep a certain picture or photo, and especially when it comes to editing in Lightroom or whatever program that you're using at home. With film photography, you're pretty much stuck with the image that you had captured. But what I mean by forgiving is that in the film world, photography is imperfect, and that's totally okay. For an example, if you accidentally open up the back of your camera and expose your roll of film to a light for a split second, it's not the end of the world. Granted, you are going to have some light peaks on your exposures that you had, but to most, having those imperfections are extremely aesthetic, and to a lot, it's very beautiful. The Minolta X700 that I had a broken shutter where the shutter would lag at high shutter speeds. That would leave like a dark spot on top of the image. I'll show you some examples too. And when I posted them on a Facebook page that I follow, the film community absolutely loved it. And I was shocked because I'm so used to trying to perfect your photos with every minor detail in the digital world. So I was always so used to that when the film community, was impressed with the imperfections, that made me happy. I was like, oh geez, it's a lot more forgiving. So yeah, I highly recommend you guys trying film photography. At least give it a shot, like I did. Don't limit yourself to just one platform. With art, limiting yourself, you're not growing. You want to expand. And by allowing myself to try film photography on top of digital photography opened my eyes up a lot, and it made me, I feel, a better photographer. It made photography a lot more fun because now I have a new aspect of what I can shoot with, what do I want to shoot with. So yeah, and it's a pretty cool thing. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys on the next one. Later.